Okay, today we're going to talk about lesson 822. It's going to be over solving quadratic equations for the x and y intercepts, okay? But before we can get into that, we need to learn one thing first, and that is the zero product property. And what does the zero product property mean? Okay, so starting off, let's look at example 1 here that I have written down. We have 3a equals 0, okay? Think about what would a have to be in order for that to equal 0? Okay, so think 3 times what would be equal to 0. And you should be like, well, Mr. Carter, that's just a equals 0. Okay, then you're correct. It's just a equals 0. Okay, that's what a would have to be in that case. Now I want you to look at example number 2. Okay, you have 5ab equals 0. Okay, what would those variables have to be in order for that to equal 0? Okay, well, one obvious thing is if you just say 5 times a and make a 0, okay, 5 times 0 would have been 0, so then anything times b is just 0 still. Okay, so a could be 0, okay, but also in this case, if we're multiplying all that stuff, it doesn't matter what b is either. We can make b 0 as well. Okay, so we say this could be a can be 0 and or b could be 0. It doesn't matter if a or b are 0. As long as one of them is equal to 0, then the whole thing is going to be equal to 0. Okay, so this is where this is the idea of the zero product property. All right, so the zero product property says the following. If a equals 0 and / or b equals 0, then it doesn't matter if there's a number out in front, but a times b is going to equal 0. So as long as one of those two things, a or b, is 0, it's going to equal 0 if you multiply them together. Okay, so that's what we're going to need to know for today. Okay, we're going to use that idea. That's called the zero product property. All right, so starting off here, let's look at the equation y equals, so here's example number 1, the big example for today. Example number 1, so y equals x squared minus 3x minus 28. Okay, this is still a quadratic equation. Remember, an equation has an equal sign, and we have it equal to y here. Before we were working with just expressions. Okay, so it's still the same thing, but now we're actually have the full equation. So when so with this, we're going to find the x and y intercepts. Okay, that's our goal for this one. Find the x and the y intercepts. Now, you can go ahead and factor this if you like. I'm going to tell you what it is factored because we don't. No, I'm not focusing on that right now. Factoring, but you could solve this. Okay, if you want to pause the video and solve it, you can. But it is y equals x minus 7 times x plus 4. Okay, so that's what that factors to. Now, using this idea, okay, we need to remember. So let's start with finding. So let's find the x intercepts. Okay. X intercepts. So we need to remember that when finding the x intercepts, that every x intercept has the y value being 0. Okay? The y value is always going to be 0. Has y, early in the morning. So it has the y value always being 0, okay? So that's the key thing with these. So that's the idea that we're going to need to use. As the y value always, man, having a rough time on this video, being 0. Okay, so if the y value is being 0, that's what we know in this equation we're going to need. So let's go ahead and take this equation that I already have factored, and let's set it equal to 0. Okay, so my y is going to get replaced with 0. So we're going to have 0 equals x minus 7 times x plus 4. Okay. Now, looking back up here, though, this is very similar to the zero product property. It's like a times b equals 0. Okay. We could imagine this x minus 7 is our a, and the x plus 4 is our b. We just need one of those to be 0. For this to work. And then we can find the x-intercept. Okay, because it's already equal to 0. The y value is 0. We could solve that and we could get it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's break it up. Okay, so first we're going to say x minus 7 equals 0. Okay, And then the other one's going to be x plus 4 equals 0. Like we said, only one of them has to be a 0. So solving this here for this first one, x minus 7, well, you'd be like, oh, I just need a plus 7 to both sides of the equation. Okay, so you get x equals 7. Okay, now on the other one, you'd be, oh, just need a minus 4 to both sides. Okay, and x equals negative 4. Well, right there, after solving that, you then have your x-intercepts because x is 7, and we substituted 0 in for y, so that's already our y value. So 7 comma 0, and on the other one, we got negative 4 also when we set it equal to 0, and if you do that, it works. So these two right here are our x-intercepts for this problem. So to find the x-intercepts for this quadratic, you just need to take the quadratic and set it equal to 0, factor it, and then you'll have your x-intercepts. Okay, so now let's talk about the y-intercepts. So I'm going to come off here on the side. We're going to find the y-intercepts. Okay, find the y-intercepts. Okay, so we're going to use the very original equation. I'm not even going to use the one that was factored. We could. Actually, yeah, let's just use the one that's, we won't use the one. We'll use the one that wasn't factored. So we had y equals x squared minus 3x minus 28. Okay, so now you got to remember to find a y-intercept, every y-intercept, I'm going to abbreviate, every y-int has x being 0. Okay, 0 is always going to be your x value in that coordinate. So we're going to use that to solve this equation. Every time we see an x, let's put in a 0. So we're going to have y equals 0. There's an x, so we're going to have 0 squared. Okay, then we have minus 3 times x, which is 0. And we have a minus 28. Now solving this, the nice thing about the y-intercepts is it finishes so easily. We have y equals 0 minus negative 3 times 0 is 0. So we have y 0 minus 28, which is just a negative 28. So that would be our y-intercept. Now we need to make sure we write that as a coordinate, and our coordinate would be 0 comma negative 28. And there is your y-intercept. Okay. So basically, to find your x and y-intercepts, you just need to put in 0 for the correct value, x or y, and solve. For finding the x-intercepts, you're going to have to use the zero product property. Okay, to find the y-intercepts, you're going to need to just put 0 in for x. Okay, so let's go over another example here. So example number 2. We have y equals x squared plus 12x plus 27. So we have the same goal. Find x and y intercepts, okay, for this problem. Same goal. So let's start off. I'm going to go ahead and say, here's going to be my x-intercepts over here. And then I'm going to find my y-intercepts over here. Okay, so I'm going to break it up. I'm going to start with the y-intercept. I always think the y-intercept is the easiest to find. So I'm going to start with that. Okay, so to find the y-intercept, you need to remember, you need to put 0 in for x. Okay, so put 0 in for x. So that means using that equation, we're going to have y equals, I see as x squared, so that's going to be a 0 squared. Okay, and then we're going to have a plus 12 times, I see another x, so that's going to be 0. And then we have a plus 27. Okay, now solving this, you're going to have y equals 0 squared is 0, plus 12 times 0 is 0, plus 27. That all combines together to be y equals 27. Now, just because you get that doesn't mean you're done. You need to make sure you write that as a coordinate. So we're going to have our coordinate for our y-intercept be 0, 27. Okay, so this is the y-intercept, 0, 27. All right. Now, going on to the x-intercepts, okay? We know we're going to have to use the zero product property, and we're going to have to put 0 in for y, okay? Because we know our y value is going to be 0. So let's go ahead and do that down here. Okay, putting 0 in for y, we're going to have 0 equals, okay, x squared plus 12x plus 27. Okay, that's all I did is put 0 in for y. Now, we need to actually, we have to factor this first. That's the first step I did up above before this. So we need to factor this one. That's the same process. Use your generic rectangle and your diamond, okay? So remember, your x squared goes in the bottom left of your rectangle. In the top right of your rectangle, you get a 27. In the bottom part of your diamond, you're going to have 12x. Okay, and in the top part, remember, multiply the diagonals, so you're going to have 27x squared. Then solving this, remember what multiplies to 27 but adds to 12, so go through your list. 127, you would have 3 and 9, and 3 and 9 works, so we would have 3x and 9x. Okay, so you fill those in your box and your diamond, and then you factor. So I would have x in the bottom times x, and then up in the top left would be a plus 3, and down here would be a plus 9. So that's just a review of what we were doing before. Okay, but let's go ahead and write this factored form out. That's why we're doing this, but it's still equal to 0. Okay, it's still equal to 0. So we're going to have 0 equals, parentheses, we have x plus 3 times x plus 9. Okay, now you just need to use your 0 product property. Remember, this would be like our A, this is our B value. Let's break it up because only one of these has to be 0, but they both can also be 0. Okay, so we need to solve. When is x plus 3 equal to 0? So we're going to say 0 equals x plus 3. And when is, that's a 9. Okay, better write that correctly. When is x plus 9 going to equal 0? Okay, you could write it either or. Either way, it doesn't matter. I wrote one of them backwards this time. Okay, now you just need to solve for x on each of these. Okay, solving for x, minus 3 from both sides on the red one. Okay, so you get x equals negative 3. So one of your x-intercepts is going to be negative 3, 0, because we put 0 in for y. But you got to go find the other one, so you got to finish the other one, solve for x on the other one. You get some minus 9 from both sides, and you get x equals a negative 9. So for this one, your x-intercept is negative 9, 0. So these are your two x-intercepts. You always want to make sure you find every x-intercept, and that is using the 0 product property idea. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you another one here. I want you to try this one by yourself, okay? Then resume the video. Oops. Resume the video and check your answer with everything I have written up on the screen. So I'm writing up. So you're going to have example 2 or 3, sorry, is going to be y equals 2x squared plus x minus 15. Okay? So go ahead and find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. Okay, so I finished solving my problem here. Okay, you can see I did the x and the y-intercepts. Remember, for the y-intercept, you put 0 in for x. Okay, I solved, and make sure you write your coordinates. Okay, the y-intercept is a coordinate, so 0, negative 15. Okay, then my x-intercepts, okay, I factored it. I put 0 in for y. I factored it. Okay, and after factoring, I get 2x minus 5 times x plus 3. Remember, you set both of those equal to 0, and you solve. So you get the two coordinates of 2.5, 0 and 3, 0. Those are your x-intercepts. Okay. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll help you out.